Good evening, afternoon, morning to all you lovely listeners. Welcome back to a nice cup of fist tea. Today's podcast we're going to be delving into a world we haven't touched upon as of yet, but one Carrie is exceedingly excited to speak about.
Yeah, I am.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me paint you a picture. It's cold. It's wet.
I couldn't do a water sound.
And we are travelling by boat to raid, kill and rob, basically England.
Woo!
Yes, we are delving into the world of the Viking. A specific Viking who was more interested in conquest than plunder, and how a skeleton condition plagued him in both body and name. And in this week's Ridiculous Death, we learn how a decapitated head had the last laugh.
Disclaimer first. We can't claim that what we're telling you is fact. A lot of the information we have about the Vikings and individuals in particular do stem from fact and fiction. Some is myth. It can be difficult to know the difference. We will try our best to decipher it, but if we just take the info here with a pinch of salt, then no one can be accused of deceit. With that out of the way, grab a drink and let's get historical. Today we are going to be learning, chatting, meeting Ivar Ragnarsson, otherwise known as Ivar the Boneless. He's known from Old Norse and medieval Latin sources as the son of the Danish king Ragnar Lothbrok and his second wife Aslaug. His half-brothers and brothers included Björn Ironside, Halfdan Ragnarsson, Hvitserk, Sigurd Snake in the Eye and Ubba. But details of his early life are largely unknown. Shocker. His nickname is the unfortunate result of Ragnar's eagerness on his wedding night with Aslaug, Ivar's mother, who had, to no avail, cautioned him to wait 3 nights before consummating their marriage. Marriage? Marriage is what we have today. Sorry. Consummating their marriage, lest the son they conceived should be born with no bones, which I guess kind of happened. Typical bloke, couldn't wait. Disclaimer, I don't mean that. Men are cool. He obviously wasn't born without bones. He probably had some kind of scoliosis or maybe even like polio, something like that. But what exactly Ivar's bonelessness entails is hard to picture. We get the impression of weak or brittle bones or literally no bones, at least in his legs. Like, you know when in Harry Potter where Gilderoy Lockhart tries to repair his arm and it just goes all floppy?
Yes.
Yeah, like that but with legs. That was in my mind at least.
Cool.
But either way, Ivar is carried everywhere on a stretcher or shield. Another account is that he was actually known as the Hated, which in Latin would be exosus. A medieval scribe with only a basic knowledge of Latin, or us, would have interpreted it as ex, without, and us, meaning bone, so the boneless. Although it is hard to align this theory with the direct translation of his name given in Norse sources, hence the myth disclaimer from earlier. Anyway, despite his physical deformities, Ivar is famed for his cleverness and strategical insight, and is generally shown as a leader of his band of brothers on their adventures. The popular TV series Vikings, which I love, although I have to catch up on the latest season, although I have seen a massive spoiler, but I love it. And I actually have a friend who was an extra in the first couple of episodes. Oh. Hi Rebecca, if you're listening. Yeah, it's so good. I mean, it's more...
You have said about it quite a few times.
I think you'd like it. It's really, really good. The cast is incredible. And possibly one of my favourite characters is the character Floki, played by Gustav Skarsgård, who's just like... He's a boat builder. He's really clever, but in a weird sort of a way. And he's really into the gods. He's very devout. But the best line from him is when another character walks up to him in a meal hall and is like, Floki, can you keep a secret? And he just goes, no. And walks away. It is perfect. Brilliant. Anyway, I digress.
It's fine. It's about Vikings. You may talk.
This is true. So in the series Vikings, Ivar is portrayed by Alex Her Anderson, who echoes this trait and shows him as a brilliant tactician. 2, in that show, he's hauled around in a cart due to his disability and is actually depicted as cruel and ruthless. A spoiled brat who becomes a bit of a sociopath, killing his brother Sigurd Snake in the Eye in a fit of rage. All creative license, of course, and spoilers. With Ivar the Boneless only appearing within the Ragnar Lothbrok mythos, the starting point for his deeds must be its best known and main source, the 13th century Icelandic The Saga of Ragnar Lothbrok, or in Old Norse, and I'm going to give this one a go, Ragnar's Saga Lothbroka.
All right? Well done. I just want to apologise for the squeaking of the chair.
Yeah.
I can't move, but I'm a fidgeter.
Yeah, so it will squeak a lot.
I
But it's cool.
apologise.
It kicks off with the childhood of Aslog, who will go on to become Ragnar's second wife and the mother of Ivar. She is the daughter of Sigurd and Brunhild, the legendary dragon slayer and the Valkyrie from Germanic mythology, further popularised by Wagner in the Saga of the Volsungs and the Rings of the Nibelung, who died when she was 3 years old. Thus she grows up in Norway, taken in by a poor family who name her Kraka, which means cow. No, crow even. No, Kraka. Not cow. Crow. I forgot the R. And keep her parentage hidden. Meanwhile, Ragnar, son of King Sigurdring of Denmark, meets his first wife, Tora, after ridding her town in Gotland from its dragon problem. Yeah, everyone loves a dragon ridder.
I mean, everyone loves a dragon slayer. And he is a dragon slayer.
Unless, of course, you love a dragon.
Well, true.
With her, Ragnar has 2 sons, Ivar's older half-brothers, Eric and Agnar.
After Thora's untimely death, Ragnar encounters Kraka while riding in Norway and marries her, despite her seemingly poor heritage. Although Kraka, who is Ivar's mother, remember, just remind everyone that's her nickname, tells him that she's been cursed to give birth to a son with no bones. Kind of going back to what we said earlier. If her husband proved too impatient, as we said before, and thus 9 months later Ivar the Boneless was born, and a quote straight from the book says, "The boy was boneless as if there was no gristle where his bones should be. When he was young, he was grown so large that no one was his equal. He was the handsomest of all men, and so wise that it wasn't certain whether there had ever been a wiser man than him."
One thing you need to know about Norse mythology, and they also do it in Greek. It's a lot of your old mythologies. The hero and the gods are incredibly handsome. Always handsome, always beautiful. If you are a noble posing as a poor person, they will know because you ain't fugly.
Yeah, and because, that means that there's a lot of weight on your looks.
Yep. We would not be heroes. We have faces for podcast.
Yeah, well, everyone loves a bad guy. Everyone roots for the underdog.
Exactly. You're pretty though. You clicked!
Alice!
Sorry, we should explain. Em couldn't click her fingers until recently, and now she can.
And it was just audible. It's so exciting. Anyway, back to Vikings. So despite Ivar...
Ivar? Alright, Ivar.
Despite Ivar's inconvenient condition, the situation could have been much worse. More sons are born to Ragnar and Kraka, and as we said before, but just to hear my translation...
I believe in you.
Bjorn, Ironside, Havitserk, and Rogvald. And at the later point, Sigurd, Snake in the Eye. How was it?
That... close.
You know what? I try my best. Like I said, underdogs.
Proud.
But they all grow up to be great men and bold warriors. Often they'd all go raiding together.
A family that raids together stays together.
Yeah. We shall read on. Ivar was very apt at using a bow, and his upper body seemed to have an extraordinary strength, despite his bonelessness. At least in this particular saga, anyway. When meeting King Eystein of Sweden in battle, he had a magical cow named...
Sibylla.
I wondered, yeah, thank you. So there was a magical cow named Sibylla. It was at his side, and it wreaked havoc on its opponents, because why not? Yeah. Magical cows. Everyone has one in their tails.
They do in Ireland, apparently.
Yeah. Ivar steps up. He orders his men to create...
Does he actually step up, though?
No, it was a play on words. He orders his men to create a massive bow out of a large tree, and from his shield he drew his bow as if it was a flimsy elm twig, shooting an unfortunate
Sibylla.
You can say it for me, I will just stop talking. Right in between her eyes.
Sibylla?
Then goes on a rampage, and Ivar is tossed at her by his men, crushing her completely. So not only is he boneless, he's also strong enough to crush a magical cow.
I'm sorry, I just had that scene from Thor Ragnarok. Just get help, throw Ivar. What do we do? Chuck him?
Needed to talk. Took a mouthful of my milkshake. Oh. No. But yeah, he was strong enough to crush this magical cow.
Obviously.
Because he clearly had real life magical powers. After being picked up again, so obviously he has no bones in his legs, he can't stand up, so he was then picked back up again. His voice pierces across the whole battlefield, reaching each warrior as if they were standing next to them and motivating them. Kind of think, Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows Part 2, where Voldemort is talking directly into the ears of everyone.
Yeah.
from this.
In a non-threatening way.
No, this was in a motivational, you can do this, I will ride into battle!
Immortality is with you on your grasp!
Yep.
Let's take it!
And as such, the sons of Ragnar achieve victory. Huzzah!
Huzzah! I'm sorry, I'm not entirely sure what noise that was. I tried to sneeze halfway through.
This is going well. Towards the end of this particular saga, and after boasting that he will invade England with just 2 ships, Ragnar is captured by King Ivar of Northumbria around 866 CE, and he's thrown into a snake pit where he dies.
That went well for you, Ragnar.
Yeah. So he couldn't, he shouldn't have boasted. No, but he had a boast battle. Ragnar's sons then avenged their father by sailing to England and they land in East Anglia, which is here where we live. More historical stuff here. We're just like a big old historical corner of England.
Although they used to refer to the East Anglians as frogs because you all lived in marshland.
Meh, we still do, kind of. Our houses could subside.
Yeah. Household insurance around here is a problem.
Yeah. But it's fun and historical.
Yeah.
They then moved to Northumbria and allegedly began torturing Ella by performing the blood eagle on him and torturing him, which is that they, again a quote, now had the eagle cut in Ella's back, then all his ribs severed from the backbone with the sword in such a way that his lungs were pulled out there. This creates a wing-like shape. So if you can imagine having your back cut in half, your ribs sprayed open and your lungs pulled out and flopped out to the side.
But it looks like an eagle, so it's cool.
Hurt like a bitch, though.
I don't think after your lungs have been pulled out and flopped about, but you'd much care.
But luckily for Ella, this method is thought to be fictitious and the stuff of legends only. Even though when I said that, you were like, no, apparently it's canon. I don't know, but that's the whole bit of the fact, fiction, mythology, blah, 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 blah. But I would like to think it wasn't because that sounds bloody painful.
And I would like to think it was because, let's face it, that would be one hell of a deterrent.
I mean, it'd scare you not to piss him off again.
Yeah, it's like, ooh, blood eagle. No, 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 no. And you would, no, 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 no.
Mm-hmm.
After installing a puppet ruler named Egbert in Northumbria, Ivar led the Vikings to Nottingham in the Kingdom of Mercia. The Mercian king Burgred called upon Wessex for assistance, and King Ethelred I and the future King Alfred the Great, what a babe, soon arrived to besiege Nottingham, and the Danes withdrew to York without a fight. They remained at York for about a year. Sorry.
You're right there, Carrie. Bit of a hiccup.
Oh, I'm okay. I'm good. Let's try again. They remained at York for about a year, and in 869 they recrossed Mercia and returned to East Anglia, where they defeated King Edmund in battle. Where they defeated him is now known as Bury St Edmunds because he was canonised. Because he defeated in Christian honour the barbarian horde.
But now Bury St Edmunds has a really nice spa.
Spa as in SPA or spa as in with an R on the end?
SPA. Ballantine one.
Oh, Ballantines are good.
Uh-huh.
Anyway. They defeated King Edmund, and Ivar apparently didn't participate in the Viking campaign, which was ultimately unsuccessful, to take Wessex from King Alfred in the 870s. I mean, would it have been successful if he was there? Who knows? Instead, he renewed his partnership with Olaf the White.
Can we just pause for Olaf the White?
Does he like warm hugs? I mean, he'd probably try and kill you if you gave him a hug. But I'd try.
But some things are worth melting for.
He'll understand when he's older. And entered what is now Scotland. Their army overran and destroyed Dumbarton, which is capital of the Strathclyde Kingdom, in 870. And the following year, the two returned in triumph to Dublin.
Yay!
Ivar, by then known as King of the Norsemen of all Ireland and Britain, because just Ivar wasn't good enough, had no children to succeed him, because of the way he was, with no lust or love. It has been suggested that rather than this sentence indicating that Ivar's physical problems also prevented him from having intercourse, perhaps his bonelessness did not so much entail skeletal problems at all, but rather that he couldn't perform.
So, boneless, as in he can't get a boner.
Mm-hmm.
And they named him that. Poor Ivar. I think I'd rather be known that I have no legs than a limp.
Imagine, like, getting to Valhalla and everyone's there, like, sharing stories, like, I am Eric the Fearsome, and I am Ragnar the Brave. I'm Ivar the Boneless. Why do they call you that?
It's better than Bran the Broken.
Everybody has a better story than Bran the Broken. That was a moment's silence for our hopes and dreams. Either way, Ivar is here described as having died in England of old age. That is one source. To learn more, we go to another. The main Latin source, in which we also find Ivar at length, is the Gesta Danorum, Deeds of the Danes.
Check you.
I know, right? Probably written in the early 13th century CE by Saxo Grammaticus. The Gesta introduces some new characters and events unreported by the sources. One explanation for this apparent mishmash is that Saxo may have been trying to reconcile various versions of the stories he'd heard or read elsewhere into one account. A crucial difference between Saxo's work and the saga and tale discussed above is that Auslug is wholly absent, creating a slight parenting issue for Ivar, who's normally depicted as her son. Although he does not explicitly say so, when talking about Ragnar and Tora getting together, Saxo seems to imply here that Ivar, also known as Ivar but with a W instead of a V, is her son. By her he begot two nobly gifted sons, Radbard and Dunvat. These also had brothers, Sigurd, Björn, Agnar and Ivar. Sigurd corresponds with Sigurd, Snake in the Eye, and Björn with Björn Ironside, while Radbard and Dunvat are wildcards. We have no clue. In another twist, Saxo makes no mention at all of Ivar being boneless, perhaps dismissing it as far too impractical fantasy, because being born boneless was too much of a fantasy, but a magical cow is okay. Yeah. In this version, Ivar is shown as wise and respectful and a person worthy of his father's trust, fitting in with the overall vibe of the other legends. While one of Ragnar's sons, Ubba, plans to usurp his father, could not get my words out then.
It's cool.
Ivar, at this point the governor of Jutland in Denmark, avoids the conflict by voluntary exile. This earns him his father's praise, and Ragnar later puts Ivar in charge of his kingdom whilst he is away. Subsequently, the King Eilaf's story unfolds, with Ivar helping his father on his initial trip to York, and later hearing of Ragnar's death by the familiar route. The boarhide trick is preserved here too, laying the foundations for Ivar's 2-year rule in England. He then settles in Denmark, choosing his brother Agnar to keep an eye on England. This is the last we hear of Ivar in this tale.
Now, as in life, Ivar's death has been recorded many different ways by many different people. The Anglo-Saxon chronicler Ethelred
Well done.
records his death as about 1870.
1870? He lived a long time.
870. The Annals of Ulster described the death of Ivar in 873.
Animals, not anals.
Oh, you mean that's funny.
You said the Annals of Ulster. I'm sorry, I'm sure. I am to be chastised.
Are we done? Are we finished?
Yeah.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Their identification of the King of Litherd as
Gottfried.
was added by a copyist in the 17th century. In the original 11th century...
Put your teeth back in.
11th century manuscript, the subject of the entry was simply called Ragnarsson, which is the King of Lochlan, which more than likely referred to Amar, whose death is not otherwise noted in the fragmentary...
Annals.
The
Wow.
The cause of death was a sudden and horrible disease. It's not mentioned in any other source, but it raises the possibility that the true provenance of Ivar's Old Norse nickname lay in the crippling effect of an unidentified disease that struck him down at the end of life. In 1686, a farm labourer named Thomas Walker discovered a Scandinavian burial mound at Repton in Derbyshire, close to the battle site of the Great Heathian army, where they overthrew the Mercian king Bugred of the kingdom. The number of partial skeletons surrounding the body, there's over 250.
That's a lot.
Yeah. This signified that the man buried there was of high status. It has been suggested that such a burial mound is possibly the last resting place of the renowned Ivar. According to the saga, Ivar ordered that he was to be buried in a place that was opposed to attack, and prophesied that, if that was done, foes coming to the land would be met with ill success. This prophecy held true, and says the saga, until when Wilhelm Bastard,
William I of England,
came ashore. He went to the burial site and broke Ivar's mound and saw that Ivar's body had not decayed. Then Wilhelm held a large pyre made upon which Ivar's body was burnt. Thereupon, Wilhelm proceeded with the landing invasion and achieved victory.
And what year was that in?
I don't know. I'm trying to think. What's that song?
0800 00
1066. I'm actually with Hastings now.
Oh, wow.
My new car, I'm with Hastings Direct
Very
Insurance
nice.
now, so yeah.
It's one of those things that every English person knows if you start to sing 0800 00.
1066.
Leaving aside for a moment the fact that a person who was quite literally boneless is unlikely to have made the history books as a famous Viking raider or even to have survived past birth in those days, let's look at the question of whether Ivar has some basis in historical reality. Let's break down the bones. See what I did there?
Yeah, very clever, Carrie.
Sarcasm again. I'm cut. I'm wounded. A word of caution again, due to the time gap between the sources and their subject matter, most of the Ragnar sagas spring up from the 12th century CE onwards and are clearly legendary in nature, while the deeds they describe take place in the 9th century CE. This century is not exactly a gold mine when it comes to coverage by historical sources either, so stories can be hard to verify. Add that to the fact that many Viking names were quite common, so finding a certain Ivar in two separate sources does not at all guarantee you will take home the prize money when claiming it is the same person. For starters, certain events and people that appear in the Ivar legends are actually historical. King Aela of Northumbria really existed and reigned around 866 CE, and he witnessed a great Viking army, or the Great Heathen Army as they were known, hounding the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms from 865 CE onwards. Aela's historical death is said to have occurred in battle with Viking forces at York in 867 CE, but no mention is made of the gruesome blood eagle torture method perpetuated by the Ragnar legend. But let's leave that in because it's cool. When it comes to chasing down the real Ivar, specifically the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle actually mentions Hingvar and Hubba as rulers of this Viking great army, as well as a certain Halfdene. Anglo-Saxon Chronicle for 870 and 871 CE. They have often related to Ivar the Boneless and Ubba, with Halfdene or Halfdan possibly representing the Hvitserk of Old Norse tradition. Later English sources add some more tidbits, but probably not
I'm really sorry, I need to move. My butt's going numb.
Right,
Sorry.
there, squeaky.
I knew that was going to be really loud, so I thought I might just... Oh, ow, sorry. I'm done.
Later English sources add some more tidbits, but probably not with a proper historical basis. Besides Hingvar, and other spellings that crop up are Ingvar, as in Inguar, Ingvar with a W, Igvar or Ior, linked to the Danish form of Ivar. On the other side of the Irish Sea, in 9th century Viking Dublin, we find another figure that is often dragged into the Ivar discussion. A certain Viking leader called Eimar, or Ivar, pronounced like Ivar because the MH makes a V sound, pops up time and again in the contemporary Irish records, wreaking havoc across the country and getting tangled up in the Northern Irish Sea's region's politics from 853 CE until his death in 873 CE. It's proved irresistibly attractive to many to see both these Ivars, the one active in England and the one active in Ireland, as the same person.
If Ivar the Boneless of the later sagas was directly based on historical Vikings, the above two that you mentioned appear to be the prime candidates. Many things cautioned against seeing them as copy-pasted figures though, and a lot of the details differ between legend and history. For starters, Ivar's supposed father, we've said all the way through, Ragnar Lothbrok, was probably not directly historical, but was rather based on multiple figures tied together into one larger-than-life character, serving for a literary purpose.
Okay.
Whoever inspired Ragnar, moreover, is no traceable in any way connected with the historical Hingvar/Ivar.
Okay.
As far as we know, the Viking invasion of Anglo-Saxon England in 865 CE had nothing to do with avenging anyone's father either, like it says in the sagas.
But every saga has a really good revenge plot.
I mean, you need to have some revenges.
Revenges?
Words!
You need to have a good revenge plot to further it on.
You said Revengers, my brain went Avengers, it went Chris Evans, I lost words.
Yeah, I can see how that happened.
Yeah.
I get that.
However, the 9th century CE setting of the story of Ivar the Boneless clearly draws from reality. It is not hard to imagine either how the deeds of such real Vikings as Ingvar and or Imer may have, far down the line, inspired the Ivar the Boneless of the legends. They are taking on greatly embellished and tailored proportions, but with roots in the 9th century CE history. So basically it's just saying how that there was probably lots of people that were all put together to make this one big awesome person.
Kind of like how the Grimm brothers did with their stories. They like collected loads of them, and then translated and changed them into one central story, which they then adapted and
kinda also like, and it pains me to say this, the King Arthur legends. I hate that I say legend because I want it to be real and I want them to look like Bradley James. But isn't like, obviously there's been actual King Arthurs, or well not King Arthurs, but there's been Arthurs.
Apparently historical figures it's based on.
Yeah, but isn't King Arthur a mix of lots of kings?
Supposedly, yeah, he's a mix of lots of kings and a mix of an ideal of kings as well, and then probably based on an actual historical character. As in one central character, and then later romanticised. Like the addition of the Grail story wasn't an original addition; it was later on. But it was, and whether he's from England, Wales, or Brittany over in France, nobody quite knows. The Merlin myth is perpetuated across loads of different cultures. The Lady of the Lake, there isn't just one; there's several.
Wow. That lake be a hussy.
Yeah, but the one thing we do know is that the legend of one of his knights, Tristan, as in Tristan and his old, his uncle, King Mark of Cornwall, real person.
Yeah. See, there's always a little bit of historical fact behind the fiction.
Every myth, every legend has a grounding in truth. Like what you know.
Definitely. So, that is Ivar the Boneless in a nutshell.
Oh, what a babe.
That's pretty much all I could find on him, but like we said, pinch of salt, really.
Yeah, but I do recommend looking into the sagas with him. Like the saga of Ragnar Lothbrok is a good one. You also find out that Lothbrok means shaggy pants because he used to wear hairy leggings.
And you were telling me why their brother was called Sigurd Snake in the Eye.
Yeah, because when he was born he had like a deformity in his eye that looked like the shape of a snake. So Sigurd, Snake in the Eye. Pretty much say what you see.
I mean, I thought Snake in the Eye, my first thing went to he was killed by a snake in the eye.
No. He had a snake in his eye. Ragnar was killed by snakes. But he had a snake in his eye, and his mother, Aslag, was a vulva, which was a witch. And she could give birth to stuff like that and give prophecies and just basically be all witchy.
And people revered them.
Yeah.
Didn't mass murder them.
No, they respected them, they revered them, they spoke for the gods. Magic was an incredible thing, and vulvas were given seats at the high table, the best food, the best entertainment, the best beds. You respected them or they cursed you, and you did not want them to curse you.
Matthew Hopkins didn't care.
Matthew Hopkins should learn his lesson, because I hope he's currently surrounded by a load of vulvas. And Freya herself was a vulva.
Yes.
So you do not piss them off.
Right. So that was the main block of our podcast, which brings us to our segment of the evening. Karen.
Ridiculous death! Sorry.
I just felt it needed a pause.
Oh, thank you.
It was very good, very good. Right. Today's ridiculous death is obviously a Viking.
Woot woot.
Earl Sigurd the Mighty, who was the first Earl of Orkney.
Ah, Orkney. Great
Yes.
place. No chicken farms.
According to the Orkneying saga, Sigurd the Mighty was the first Earl of Orkney, but although the saga makes it clear that Earl Sigurd I was one of 3 great Earls of Orkney, it contains very few details of his actual reign.
We can guess by his name that he was pretty badass, though. Like, Sigurd the Mighty.
Yeah. Sigurd enters the saga as the forecastleman of one of the King Harold's fair ships on his voyage of conquest to Orkney, Shetland and the Western Isles.
Okay.
According to the saga, the Norwegian king had sailed westwards to deal with Vikings who, after raiding Norway throughout the summer, were making the Northern Isles their base.
Hang on, King Harold?
Yep.
Harold Fairhair. I know him. Go on. Not personally. Sorry.
Harold Harold's forces conquered Orkney and Shetland before going on to the Hebrides and the Isle of Man. On the voyage, Sigurd's brother, Earl Rognvald of Moor, received the earldom of Orkney from King Harold as compensation for the loss of his son, Ivar.
We did say it's a common name. It's like John.
Yep. Rognvald had no intention of staying in Orkney, so passed the earldom to Sigurd, who became Earl Sigurd I of Orkney.
Oh, that was nice of him.
Yeah, so that's just a little bit of background on Sigurd the Mighty.
Dun, dun, dun.
As Earl, Sigurd ruled wisely. He became very powerful, but unfortunately, the saga says pretty much nothing else about his reign. He's not known for his reign. He's known for another thing, hence why he's part of this this segment of our podcast.
Okay, how did he bite it?
Instead, the reader is hurled into the tale of the death. Are you ready for this, Carrie?
I'm ready for this.
A story that remains firmly in the memories of Orkneyans today as a folk origin for the Kirkwall Brigade.
Kirkwall's a nice place, though. Yep. Visit it.
Sigurd had formed an alliance with Thorstein the Red, travelling south into Scotland, where they conquered all of Caithness and large parts of Argyll, Moray and Ross. Glossing over the exact details of the campaign, the saga goes on to tell us that Earl Sigurd constructed a stronghold in Moray before mentioning a feud between him and local magnate Malbrigit, nicknamed Malbrigit Tusk because of his protruding teeth.
Okay.
The reason for the two men's enmity is not given, but it was undoubtedly to do with the Orkney Earls' forays into Scottish territory. Whatever the cause, both men agreed that they should meet to settle their differences, each taking no more than 40 men. Sigurd, however, decided that the Scots were not to be trusted, so he turned up with 80 warriors, 2 mounted on each of his 40 horses. Malbrigit was aware that treachery was afoot, and when he noticed there were 2 feet on each side of every horse, knowing the Orkney Earl had betrayed him, Malbrigit instructed his men to fight on and slay 2 of the enemy each. As battle ensued, and despite their bravery, the outnumbered Scottish side perished, and Malbrigit was slain. Elated at his victory, Sigurd had the head of his vanquished enemies severed and strapped to his warriors' saddles as a triumph.
Okay, it's fair.
So at the point where he's a mighty earl, he's wise, he ruled really well.
He's just won a victorious battle, albeit by cheating.
Yeah, he cheated. People didn't trust the Scots.
Rude.
Yeah, and so at this point he's very happy. All the Scots are slain. His 80 men have got 40 heads.
Yeah,
we're all good. Snatching up his grisly trophy, however, Sigurd followed suit. And he fastened Malbrigit's head to his saddle. Obviously, he's the leader. He takes the leader's head.
Makes sense.
After mounting his horse, the Earl's forces headed north. But like we said, the decapitated head had the last laugh. Malbrigit has his revenge. While spurring his horse during the ride home, Earl Sigurd's leg was scratched by Malbrigit's protruding teeth.
Matata.
Yep.
Sorry.
The scratch became infected, and before long, Earl Sigurd the Mighty died of the infection teeth bite.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
He got bitten by a decapitated head and died.
He bit the dust.
Wasn't so mighty then, was he?
Nope.
Do you reckon that Malbrigit was sat there like, sucks to be you?
So he gets out of the afterlife, like, tell.
Yep.
I mean, I just did an impression with buck teeth, but I realised then we were not on camera.
We are not on camera, and I'm not entirely sure anybody else needed to see that.
No. I do not have buck teeth, just saying.
Well, they wouldn't know. They wouldn't know.
No, they wouldn't. I'm actually stunning. Genuinely, I'm nodding as well, and you can't see that either.
Yeah, me too.
I'm just gonna call it a day.
Yeah, I think this has been fun.
Informative.
Happy for your first Viking podcast, Carrie?
So happy. So happy. Many more to come. You know what? I can't do Dracula. Oh, I'm so good. Oh, I'm so happy now.
And on that bombshell, we're going to say goodnight.
Good night. Let's go raiding. Right, just before you go, can we direct you and your raiding party to a most awesome and epic podcast?
Not quite on our level, but I guess they'll do.
They're trying.
2 friends of ours do a geek-style themed podcast, and the description is a look at the world through geek-tinted glasses, which should tell you all that you need to know about the ManNic Podcast. 2 N's, very important. If you could head over, they are the ManNic Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, and they also, obviously, on SoundCloud at the ManNic Podcast.
That's the ManNic-Podcast.
Yes.
With 2 N's.
Very important. They talk everything geekdom, and their last episode, which was released, well, you'll be listening to this today, so it was released today as well, on the same day. Just realised, listened to it earlier. It is all for Tobias's big birthday.
Happy birthday, T.
Tomorrow. And yes, it's all his episode, so it's a little bit geeky of things that he enjoys.
He's only 50.
I'm so glad he's not here and you said that. Holy shit.
Tobias.
Okay, well, we're going to go. Thanks for listening to a nice cup of history tea. Enjoy the ManNic Podcast, and we'll speak to you next week.
I'm just going to go hide.
I think you better.